Howdy, everyone. Welcome to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Aida Rodriguez with you, host of Truth Serum, oftentimes a co-host on TYT. Aida, thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me. I love it.
So we have a huge show ahead for you guys, including the most erratic, insane behavior by the person who's supposed to be leading this country, Donald Trump. Before we get to all the stories, though, just want to give you guys a quick reminder about our partner, Aspiration. Because of their partnership, we're able to keep this show running, but more importantly, partner up with a company that understands the importance of protecting our environment. And so if you want to deposit your money into a financial institution that is conscious about the environment, just go to aspiration.com/TYT to sign up for free and learn more about what you get from this wonderful financial institution. Also, a quick programming note, we have a special coming up next Tuesday. It is being called the TY Tarantino special, and you should watch it. It'll be great. So we're gonna be live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And the whole point of this is to discuss where we would be today if we had chosen a different path rather than TYT. So definitely check that out. It'll be lots of fun. And just if you want to set reminders and be up to date on our special programming, you can do so by going to tyt.com/notice. All right, without further ado, let's get to the news. We learned yesterday that Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer was the target of at least 13 men in the state of Michigan who wished to kidnap her. Many of them wish to kidnap her and essentially punish her for being a responsible governor and implementing social distancing guidelines in order to ensure that the spread of COVID either slows down or stops. Now, they were unquestionably motivated, encouraged by Donald Trump. But now Donald Trump is turning around and crying, whining in this Twitter rant regarding how Governor Whitmer has not thanked him enough for what he's done for her. I'm not gonna read his entire Twitter thread because it's pathetic and it's embarrassing to have such a weak, sad man lead this country, but I'll read you the relevant portion of it. He says, my Justice Department and federal law enforcement announced today that they foiled a dangerous plot against Governor of Michigan, the governor of Michigan. Rather than say thank you, she calls me a white supremacist, while Biden and Democrats refuse to condemn Antifa, anarchists, looters, and mobs that burn down Democrat-run cities. Well, Trump should probably have a conversation with his own FBI because the FBI has noted that Antifa is not any type of domestic terror threat. However, Trump supporters certainly are, at least the portion of Trump supporters that are motivated enough to attempt to kidnap the governor of Michigan. And so Trump, of course, a sensitive, egotistical man, was responding to Governor Whitmer, calling him out on the rhetoric he uses, which motivates these types of hate crimes and acts of terror against Americans. Take a look.
Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like these two Michigan militia groups. Stand back and stand by, he told them. Stand back and stand by. Hate groups heard the president's words not as a rebuke, but as a rallying cry, as a call to action. When our leaders speak, their words matter. They carry weight. When our leaders meet with, encourage, or fraternize with domestic terrorists, they legitimize their actions, and they are complicit. When they stoke and contribute to hate speech, they are complicit.
Now, we all know that Trump with thin skin can't handle a woman calling him out for what he really is. And so he responded by saying, defending all Americans, even those who oppose and attack me, is what I will always do as your president. I mean, we've had countless examples of him doing the exact opposite, including encouraging rally goers to physically attack protesters who show up at those rallies. He even claimed that he would go ahead and pay for the legal fees for people who commit those types of assaults. But also he continued to criticize her handling of the pandemic, even though he has proven to be the #1 failure in responding to the pandemic. He says Governor Whitmer of Michigan has done a terrible job. She locked down her state for everyone, which is what you're supposed to do when you want to stop the spread of this virus, which is what the successful countries around the world did in response to this pandemic. But he continues, Governor Whitmer, open up your state, open up your schools, and open up your churches. So he's just continuing on, Ida, with the same attacks that encourage these crazed maniacs, these hateful individuals, these white supremacists, these armed right-wing gang members to attempt to kidnap her. Luckily, that was foiled before they could actually put any real action into that. But he's remaining defiant.
You know, I think it's important first and foremost that we pay attention to the language that he uses, right? The Department of Justice did their job. They are not supposed to get praised for doing their job. It's like that Chris Rock joke when the father says he paid child support. You're supposed to pay child support. That's your job. You don't get props for doing what you're supposed to be doing. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. Your job as the Department of Justice is to see through for all Americans, whether you agree with their political stand or not. That's the thing that I'm most concerned about when we talk about Donald Trump, because these are our public servants whose salaries we provide with our tax dollars and are now talking to us like they are doing us a favor. And we should be really concerned about that because, you know, that is the language that the leaders of countries where people don't have democracies use. The other thing is Donald Trump, who should be sued right now by every single person whose health he's put in jeopardy. I know NBA basketball players who have been dealt with illegal hands because they knew they had herpes and they gave people herpes. And this man, knowing that he has coronavirus, is going around subjecting and exposing people to this virus that has no vaccine. We have no cure in sight. So, I mean, you know, I go off on these tangents because there are so many things wrong with what we're talking about right now. But at least, to be honest, Black Lives Matter is always getting pounced on, right? The ideology is being conflated with the organization. 13 white men woke up and decided they wanted to snatch up one woman, because she hurt their little feelings. And so what I was saying earlier is that we sit here and we say that Donald Trump really likes to stoke the racist base. No, he specifically is the king of toxic males who are racist. All of those combined with his trying to pretend that he's being tough, that he just bodied the coronavirus, that he's so, you know, he's got this tough guy policy, and he keeps feeding these men who are dangerous and allowing them to run amok in our country. And they are a real problem. These are domestic terrorists. Let's not call them anything else.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, I actually cringe at myself every time I slip and I refer to them as armed militias, because that makes them sound better than they are. It makes them sound cool, in my opinion. These are gang members. Yep. Through and through. These are gang members. These are radical right-wing extremists in America, and they should be called exactly what they are. And the connection to Donald Trump is clear. Anyone who tries to deny it is intentionally being obtuse. The fact of the matter is we have multiple examples to point to show the influence that Donald Trump has had on these types of people. And what I worry about is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are now new reports coming out indicating that there are extreme right-wing gang members in various states who are plotting similar actions. And luckily, for all the criticism that I have of the FBI, when it comes to this one issue, it seems like they have been on top of it. And I'm grateful for that, especially considering that this is an FBI functioning under the pathetic leadership of someone like Donald Trump, who continues to embolden these people. So as you guys can remember, back in April 17th specifically, Trump had tweeted, "Liberate Michigan."
Yep.
And that was right after we saw armed right-wingers show up to the state capitol on the day that state lawmakers were going to debate whether or not they were going to continue on with some of these shutdowns and social distancing guidelines. They did it specifically and intentionally to intimidate the state lawmakers. Take a look. Many of them were armed, and immediately after that event, Donald Trump tweeted, "The governor of Michigan should give a little and put out the fire. These are very good people, but they are angry. They want their lives back safely. See them, talk to them, make a deal." All right, so let's have a discussion about who these very good people are, because it turns out that at least two of the men who have been arrested for plotting to kidnap Governor Whitmer were there that day, armed. There's an image of them that was shared on Twitter. So let's take a quick look at this tweet. Spokesperson for the Michigan Attorney General confirms these two men seen here armed in the Michigan Senate gallery during session on April 30th were among the 13 charged today in the plot to kidnap and possibly kill Governor Whitmer. These are great people, very good people, as Donald Trump would say.
Yeah,
come on.
How unpatriotic too. Like, what's funny is that these alleged patriots, they want to use force and violence against people who disagree with their views. How un-American is that? They're always screaming patriotism. You know what their definition of patriotism is? Racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia. Look at them. They're
just pure terror.
Yeah, they're patriots. That's what their definition of patriotism is. And don't you even dare fight back. Because if you fight back, then you become the problem, right? That's what we saw in the debate when Joe Biden said, "Shut up, clown." He was wrong for that, right? Because you cannot talk back. And these are the problems that we're having in this country when you talk about the right and the left. Because while the left is crying that words hurt, they are actually planning to hurt people. The right is. And we have to stop. We have to defend ourselves, because and I'm not advocating violence, but I do advocate for self-defense. I think this is a very good indicator that not only their definition of patriotism is wrong, they also think that they can just run all over people who don't agree with their views.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't think that what Donald Trump said during the first presidential debate was a mistake. I think that he said exactly what he meant when he was asked to condemn white supremacists. And for those of you who maybe didn't catch that moment, here's what Trump had to say about white supremacists.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups, and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it?
Well,
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
right. Would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
Show me evidence that Antifa and the left are actually a threat to national security. Again, the intelligence community does not agree with that statement, but the intelligence community, particularly the FBI, has warned about right-wing terrorists in this country over and over and over again. So the false equivalency, which by the way, is being regurgitated by news outlets like ABC. I saw a news report by ABC News last night where they tried to draw similarities, parallels between the individuals who got arrested for trying to kidnap the governor of Michigan to left-wing groups. It's just the most ridiculous, irresponsible type of reporting imaginable. And you just heard it right there, Aida. Stand back and stand by. He knew what he was doing.
And listen, if anybody was unclear about that, his buddy Rick Santorum doubled down on it when he clarified it on CNN, when he said he's not going to condemn the people who support him. And when asked, are you talking about white supremacist groups? He said, yes, white supremacist groups. So it's not like we're putting words in their mouths. I think that it's really dangerous where we're headed. And these groups who are now explaining to people how they're not white supremacist groups, of course they're going to say they're not white supremacist groups. It's becoming a clown show, and we absolutely need people to show up. And until the politicians show up, the people need to show up. They need to show up at the polls, and they need to hold these people accountable, because this is crazy. This is crazy. This is not America.
When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Time to believe Donald Trump. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we have some updates on something that everyone in the media pretends to be concerned about, Donald Trump's health. He's probably lying to us. This is a circus. We shouldn't care about it, but it's one of the top news stories. I'm going to tell you how I really feel about it when we come back from the break.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Anna and Aida with you. Make sure you check out her show, Truth Serum. And Aida, do you have any other projects coming up that you want to tell the audience about?
I'm just working on my HBO Max special. That's why I'm on the road.
No big deal. No big deal. Just my HBO Max special.
It's like you, when you see your headlines, so much to talk about. It's overwhelming almost. But yeah, I'm working on my special. So that's why I'm on the road now.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm just going to read a few member comments and then move on to the rest of the news. Mary says, does anyone know how Melania is doing? Remember, she also tested positive for coronavirus. Haven't heard a word about her since Trump came home to play Juliet on the balcony. I love you guys. Members help the show happen. TYT.com/join to become a member. Chromatic Canuck says the interpreter is a big mood. I know who you're referring to. The interpreter doing sign language right behind Gretchen Whitmer. You're correct, and I enjoyed that. LMG15 says, love seeing Aida on TYT. What a great hosting combo to end the week. Thank you so much, guys. We love you. Thank you for helping us make this show happen. All right, well, let's move on to Trump's condition. Donald Trump and everyone around him keep arguing that he's doing great. He's super healthy, but you wouldn't know it based on how he sounded during his recent interview on Sean Hannity's show.
You know, last time I had a big problem. They oscillated my mics when I had the one debate. We had 3 debates with Hillary, and on I think the first debate, on the first debate, they oscillated the mic. Well, I want him to vote, but I will say this. Absentee is okay because absentee ballots, absentee ballots are fine.
He feels better today than he did 20 years ago. That's what he wants you to believe. I mean, obviously he didn't sound so great in that video, and people are concerned because he is now claiming that he's gonna be holding a big White House event over the weekend. I'll get to those details in just a second, but he did hint at wanting to do in-person appearances during this interview with Hannity. Let's hear what he had to say.
Rally on Saturday night. If we have enough time to put it together, but we want to do a rally in Florida, probably in Florida on Saturday night. Might come back and do one in Pennsylvania in the following night, and it's incredible what's going on. I feel so good.
Have you had a test since your diagnosis a week ago?
Well, what we're doing is probably the test will be tomorrow, the actual test, because there's no reason to test all the time, but they found very little infection or virus. If any. I don't know that they found any. I didn't go into it greatly with the doctors. We have these great doctors at Walter Reed.
He previously claimed he was getting tested like 3 times a day. Like, what happened? Like, all of a sudden, like, we don't take a tested all the time. It's because I'm actually really sick and I don't want people to know about it. What a loser. Anyway, also updated report, Trump is now reportedly going to host hundreds at an in-person event on law and order at the White House tomorrow, Saturday, on the South Lawn in conjunction with another event organized by Candace Owens. Nice. But first, I want to bring you in. What do you think about all of this? I mean, obviously, I don't believe him. I don't even really care. I don't. I know that everyone is supposed to pretend like they care. I don't care. I think he's probably sick. I think he's probably going to continue spreading it to the rest of his goons. And like, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here in this chair and pretend like I'm concerned. I'm not. Do whatever you want to do, Trump. I don't care anymore. I just want to talk about the stuff that actually, like. Okay, you talk first because I totally brought you in and started like ranting. Go ahead.
Go on.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm glad. You know how I feel about you and your passion. Listen, I think that Donald Trump is sick. I think that the people that Donald Trump is infecting, he's a public health hazard. He is a walking public health hazard, right? We don't have the data that is specific enough to know what we need to know about coronavirus to be risking our lives. They are risking it all. But it's interesting to hear the people who are defending him and in support of him. And they are going to get what's coming to them if they are willing to risk their health. What's unfortunate is that there are staff members, there are people who are security guards, there are people who are in the Secret Service who are providing a job and don't have, there's no good reason why they should be exposed to a deadly virus. The other thing, when he was shouting out the amazing doctors at Walter Reed, I just want to remind the people out there, Donald Trump does have access to the top healthcare that many of us provide with our tax dollars. right? That the socialism that you guys hate that's beneficial to him, but you don't have access to those doctors. So you're running around behind this man like a blind cult member, exposing yourself and possibly getting yourself sick, but you won't have access to the things that he has access to because he's rich. And he is using our dollars to see to it that he is fine. But you know what? Your dollars are not going to see that you are fine. And I don't understand why you don't have a problem with that.
He's been given a cocktail of experimental drugs. One of those drugs isn't even available to anyone other than the president, right? That's the Regeneron drug that he claims supposedly cured him. Of course, it's still undergoing clinical trials, and it's kind of a curious thing to say because he received Regeneron, remdesivir, and dexamethasone, which is the steroid that's probably making him feel as like invincible as he's feeling right now. The Regeneron drug that he keeps touting it basically helps him build antibodies to coronavirus. That does not have the side effect of making you feel powerful or invincible, but steroids do. But anyway, my point in bringing up the cocktail of drugs he was given is that you need to have like a controlled study so you can be able to pinpoint the exact drug that helped him recover. And by the way, if he recovered, he claims he's recovered, but we don't know because everyone around him, including his own White House doctor, refuses to answer any questions about whether he's taken a test proving that he's tested negative for coronavirus, right? In fact, one White House spokesperson had an interview on MSNBC, and it was, look, this next video is long, but just get a load of how he tries to evade a very direct question about Donald Trump's test results.
When was the president's last negative test prior to his diagnosis?
So we don't have that, but we're looking at this from a public health perspective.
So on that last negative test, you said you don't have that. You don't know, or you don't want to say?
So we don't have that. I don't personally know.
Right. What does that mean?
There are
have you asked, Brian? I think Wednesday you said you're going to look into that.
So Hallie, the president doesn't check all of his HIPAA rights at the door just when he becomes president.
So it's a privacy thing then, the reason why you're not saying the last negative test? HIPAA?
So that is one reason. Got
it. But you just said a couple of minutes ago that you would share the results of his PCR test today if you get it and if that happens. So what's the difference? Why not be more transparent with people about this last negative test? Why not be transparent about that specific, very specific piece of information?
So, Hallie, I stated we'll have further updates from the doctors. We've had updates from the doctors every single day.
Nobody's answered this question that I know, have they?
Extremely transparent, but I'm not sure why you're very focused on that question because it's not something. But it's not something that has the public health value.
Did the president at least comply with the Cleveland Clinic debate requirements to be negative tested in the 72 hours prior to that debate? Was that
you are
was the
very
president
focused
in
on
compliance with
looking
that?
backwards? The president is very interested in getting back out on the
focused on getting an answer to this question, Brian, and I think a lot of people are.
As soon as he is not going to be transmitting the virus, we will have information on that.
Got it. So as for the last debate, the 72-hour requirement to test negative, did the president comply with that, yes or no?
Hallie, we are looking at how the president can get out there without transmitting the virus, and that's what we're going to do.
That is not the question that is in front of you, Brian. So do you not have an answer? I just want to be clear. I know, again, yes or no? Do you have an answer?
Hallie,
and if you don't, just say you don't have an answer.
You've got time to talk to the White House about very important issues. Let's talk about how we want to help people get through this virus with more stimulus that the speaker seems to ignore. She's now talking about the 25th Amendment because she couldn't get the president with impeachment.
That was White House spokesperson Brian Morgenstern, just refusing to answer the question because he knows what all of us know. Donald Trump is still sick, still carries a virus that's contagious, and doesn't care about the lives of others. So he plans on holding a rally tomorrow, holding events in person tomorrow. That's what the story is. Like CNN doesn't have to cover this for 24 hours straight. There are other news stories to talk about. We're covering it because it's something that people want to know about. But I'm done focusing on the Trump circus When in reality, the real issue here is that now 210,000 Americans are dead from this virus. We still don't have another round of financial stimulus. We still have Americans who are suffering right now, but oh look, Donald Trump, is he sick? Is he not sick? He's sick. Just like he was racist before, people finally realized it like 3.5 years out. Trump is who he is. He's told us a million times. Let's believe him and let's move on. That's how I feel about it. Aida.
Yeah. Well, they continuously wag the dog, if you will, in this administration. Donald Trump his taxes came to light. He acted a fool at the debate. We didn't talk about the taxes anymore. There is a horrible, state of the state of America right now from all aspects, where we look not just to people outside of this country, but within our country. Dread is amongst us. So many catastrophes happening at one time. And as usual, we are focusing on the megalomaniac in the White House who constantly is always seeking attention. And it's always, he's like Marsha Brady. It's like Marsha. Like all we do is talk about Donald Trump while people die, while people starve, while people now their stimulus money up. He doesn't want to talk about it again until after the election because he's holding it hostage. Like we're just sitting here talking about him daily. Melania Trump said some horrible stuff. Now we're not talking about the horrible things that she says. All you right-wingers love her. She said F Fox News and F Christmas, but she wanted to fight people when they said happy holidays. We're never talking about the issues anymore because they constantly, the two egomaniacs, the two megalomaniacs, the two people who do not belong in American government, they belong on a reality show, the Real Housewives of Washington, D.C., we are talking about them constantly while Americans continue to starve, die, get evicted, are poor, are broke, their health care is hanging in the wind. And what are we talking about all day long? Donald Trump, his poor makeup job, his vapid wife, and this constant foolishness. Poor Barron, that's all I can say.
Well, we like to talk about healthcare and what the reality is for the majority of Americans. So let's talk about that, especially in the context of coronavirus and the type of treatment Trump gets versus everyone else. So if you're an average American who has contracted coronavirus and you end up in the hospital, you're unlikely to get the type of healthcare that Donald Trump received, but more importantly, you're much more likely to be slapped with a giant medical bill that will likely bankrupt you and leave your family members either evicted or hungry. And nothing makes that clearer when you break down the cost of the healthcare treatment that Donald Trump was able to receive and how much that would cost the average American. So Sarah Cliff over at the New York Times did a great analysis on this. And I want to share those details with you because it shows that our system is fundamentally broken. And the very people who claim that socialized medicine would be the absolute worst thing in this country get to take advantage of socialized medicine all the time. They love getting the free healthcare that's afforded to them through their jobs, the kind of healthcare that doesn't deny them any type of coverage or care. So let's go to the details. COVID tests, for instance, are actually pretty expensive. Although they typically cost $100, one emergency room in Texas has charged as much as $6,408 for a drive-through test. About 2.4% of coronavirus tests billed to insurers leave the patient responsible for some portion of payment, and that's according to the health data firm Castlight. Now, look, keep in mind that Donald Trump was getting tested several times a day. He doesn't have to worry about footing the bill for that. Of course, average Americans aren't going to get the same treatment. They will have to deal with the costs associated with it. But let's talk about Trump's treatment. Remdesivir. That's a new coronavirus treatment created by Gilead. It costs $3,120 when purchased by private insurers and $2,340 with public programs like Medicare and Medicaid. The median charge for a coronavirus hospitalization for a patient over 60 is $61,912, according to a claims database, Fair Health. The figure includes any medical care during the hospital stay, such as an emergency room visit that led to admission or drugs provided by the hospital. So again, of course, Donald Trump was like airlifted to the hospital. He doesn't have to worry about all of this, all of the costs associated with getting the treatment that he needed. Didn't have to worry about the transportation. But let's talk about that transportation for a second. Imagine that you're so sick that you need to be airlifted to the hospital. What would that cost you? First, let's just acknowledge that most health insurers do not cover that type of transportation. We all know that, right? Air ambulances are expensive and often not in major health insurance plans networks. The median charge for an air ambulance this is the median charge, $38,770, according to a study in the journal Health Affairs. When the helicopter trip is out of network, as about 3/4 of them are, patients are left with a median charge of $21,698 after the insurance payout. So, I don't know which insurers do cover it, but if they do, it's still insanely expensive. You're still like footing the bill by a wide margin. So then keep in mind that 2 helicopter rides at the median price would be over $40,000. In total, it would cost Americans anywhere between $100,000 or $400,000, $100,000 to $400,000 to get the same level of medical care that Trump received. And by the way, the article didn't go into any detail or even explore the fact that Donald Trump has 7 doctors surrounding him, like supervising his care. Average Americans don't get that. We know this. So my favorite reaction to all of this came from the man himself, Bernie Sanders, who tweeted the following: Mr. President, you attack socialized medicine every single day. Well, let's be clear. The excellent care you received at Walter Reed was at a 100% government-funded, government-run hospital. For Trump, socialized medicine is bad for everyone but himself. Total hypocrisy.
100%. 100%. And and the thing with the coronavirus test, for me, I've been tested several times, but I went to get rapid testing because I needed it for work. One test was $125. The other test in another neighborhood was $250. So there's not even a regulated price for these tests when people need to know for work purposes if they have it immediately. So imagine if they can arrange that way. What I don't understand, Anna, is the people who are continuously fighting for Donald Trump and can in no way identify with his financial situation. That's what I don't understand. That's what drives me crazy with people knocking the socialized medicine, when in fact, if they are the people who get COVID, they're the ones who suffer the most.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's really hard to pinpoint why that is. But my guess is that these are people who have basically experienced multiple presidential elections where people have not spoken to the issues that they're, dealing with. And all Donald Trump needed to do was come in and pretend as though he was like some fake populist or, some populist, although we know it's fake, and speak to some of the issues that matter to them. And they just believe him. It's crazy. Pew Research recently did a survey. In fact, I have it in front of me right now. Let me pull it up. And they asked people, what's the percentage? My bad. This is a Gallup survey. I want to make sure I get the source right. What percentage of Americans believe that they're better off today than they were 4 years ago financially? So September of 2020, 56% of Americans felt that they're better off today than they were 4 years ago. And the numbers were much lower before. So December of 2012, it was 45%, October of 2004, 47%, October of 1999, 38%. And so, 1992, it was 38%. And so I give you those numbers because propaganda is incredible. Even if people are not experiencing firsthand any type of improvement in their finances, in their lives, just having someone like Donald Trump repeatedly say that I built the best economy ever, I'm the best president ever, look at how great everyone is doing. Like, that's all it takes for some people to be like, yes, it's true, our lives are better, we're doing, yes, we are broke, we're about to go bankrupt, but it's okay, our lives are better. It drives me nuts, but this is just the reality that we're dealing with.
Well, it's because we do speaking to their racism and their xenophobia, and they've able to get a lot of that stuff off their chest. It's more about, I mean, if you are still broke and you're still struggling and you don't have access to the best health care, what has Donald Trump made better for you? The fact that you can voice that you hate Black people or you hate immigrants or that, women are second-class citizens or that gay people should not be able to get married and that abortion should be legal. That's why they feel like their lives are better, because they are able to release their hatred, their xenophobia, their sexism, their racism. And he's made it easy for them so much that you got people kidnapping governors, trying to kidnap
attempting
governors.
To. Yeah, trying. We got to take a break, but when we come back, we do have some breaking news. It's an update on the election the debate that's supposed to take place next week. We'll give you some updates on that and more when we.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Return. Hey everyone, welcome back to TYT. Anna and Aida with you. I'm gonna do a lightning round of super chats, so let's do it real quick. Steve Pip says, when was the last time Antifa or BLM planned a kidnapping? Guess we know which side the violence actually comes from. Totally agree. Kevin Myers says, please make Trumple thin skin swag. I'm sure they're already on it at Shop TYT, shoptyt.com. Luminia says, love you, Anna and Aida. We love you too. Dan Gonzalez says, stay salty, Anna. I love what you do. We love you. And Abyss, I can't say your screen name, sorry. I feel for you, Anna. This is a circus. I hope we all survive this. I hope so too. There was a comment from our member section that I want to read, so we can all send this person some positive juju. Just found out that my mom has COVID. She's 70 in Wisconsin. So Super Pup loves AOC for president. Sending you and your family all of the love, all of our well wishes, and hopefully your mom makes a full recovery. I'm so sorry to hear that. God, it's just been such an awful year. And then Twitch Minnesota Vikings, 5,000 bits. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure you guys check out our Twitch channel if you haven't already. It's fantastic. All right, let's move on to some breaking news. The second presidential debate has officially been canceled. It was planned for October 15th. Donald Trump decided to throw a temper tantrum after he found out that the Commission for Presidential Debates had planned to turn it into a virtual town hall because Donald Trump is sick. He has coronavirus, and how about let's not spread the virus to people who don't want to get it and actually take the virus seriously. Well, he is, now saying that he wants to hold his own town hall style event instead. Joe Biden already has a town hall style event planned with ABC News on that date of October 15th. But this again has everything to do with the fact that Donald Trump tested positive for COVID, is not being transparent about what his condition is today. There's been a lot of evasion when it comes to discussing whether Trump has taken a coronavirus test that has come out negative. No one will give us a straight answer on that. And to keep people safe, the debate was going to be virtual. But Trump is so worried that his mic is going to be cut off that he was being difficult about it. And now we're dealing with potentially 2 town hall style events that are going to be done separately by both candidates. And we'll see how that plays out. Aida.
Well, what had happened was the president didn't do so well in the last debate, right? We can all agree on that. I keep thinking of Rick Santorum's face when he was on speaking about it when they were doing coverage, because his face was, I got nothing. So it is no surprise to me that the people, the geniuses around Donald Trump are telling him, maybe you shouldn't do debates because you don't do that well in them. And because we have a process in this country and these people have trampled over every part of the American process that has been what we've been doing for years and decades. His whole, stand that he is not a machine guy, that he steps outside of the box and does things his way, is what enables him to not have to adhere to the rules, because he can't perform in them because he's not smart enough to. He couldn't even have a debate. Like who was it? Malcolm X said, the first person to raise their voice has already lost the argument. He cannot conduct himself in a civil enough manner, informed enough to have a debate, a presidential debate, which he is supposed to be doing because that's been part of the process. And so because he can't do that, he'd rather not be there. And they've enabled him so much to feel like he feels like he doesn't have to follow any of the rules. And that's what makes him that tough guy that everybody likes. What people don't realize is that they're just biting their noses to spite their faces, because every single time Trump takes a step forward, the people of the United States, they take 100 steps backwards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And it's been clear, at least it's been clear to me and I think others, that the whole strategy for the Trump campaign is anytime they need to debate, just talk over their opponent. Like talk over, interrupt, avoid answering questions directly. That's what we saw with Pence. That's what we saw with Trump in the first debate. Trump knows he performed poorly. He knows he performed poorly because everyone around him, even his most loyal bootlickers, had to admit that he did not perform well during the first presidential debate. Larry Kudlow, his own advisor, went on national television on Fox News and talked about how well Pence did because Pence looked presidential, and how Donald Trump shouldn't skip the next debate because he wants Trump to prove that he can also look presidential. I mean, that was obviously a critical comment about Donald Trump because no one can deny it. He failed in the first debate. He did not prepare. And quite honestly, how can you prepare for a debate where you're expected to defend all of your failures? Yeah. 210,000 Americans dead during this pandemic. Okay, we're one of the top countries in terms of deaths per capita from coronavirus. Yeah. Homeboy didn't pay his taxes for years and only paid $750 in some cases. Okay, he is being audited and could possibly owe the IRS $100 million. He's in debt to the tune of $400 million. This man is a failure. He called our troops losers and suckers. How do you defend that? How do you prepare enough to defend that? You can't. So he's weaseling his way out of this debate. We all know it. And he is a sad, pathetic, weak man. That's all he is. And he should be laughed at. He shouldn't be taken seriously. He should be laughed at. End of story.
He's surrounded by criminals. Look how many people around him have been accused of crimes. And I would like to challenge someone like Van Jones that every time Donald Trump does something decent like he should do, they call him presidential. He's not presidential. Presidents are able to hold a basic Lincoln Douglas debate, right? I did it in high school. With dirty shoes on, living on food stamps, taking the bus to the neighborhoods with the rich white kids. And I was able to hold down a full-time job as a teenager and do my research for a Lincoln Douglas debate. So the president who can get rich cocktails when he has coronavirus and the best health care and nothing to do, because but on Twitter all day, he could be using that time to prepare for a debate and honor what has been a part of this system forever. He is not presidential. Not.
Well, that's why he needs to cheat in order to try to win the election. So let's talk about that. Earlier, we shared a story indicating that the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, was going to limit the number of ballot drop-off places to one place per county, which will make it difficult for people to submit their ballots. Now it turns out that Ohio tried to do the same thing, but a federal judge has intervened, which shows that what both Ohio tried to do and what Texas is currently doing is considered an undue burden when it comes to people who want to submit their ballots. So the Secretary of State in Ohio wanted to make it more difficult for people to vote by mail by limiting these ballot drop-off boxes to local election offices. But a federal judge did block the rule. At issue was an order earlier this week from Republican Secretary of State, of course, Republican Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, that limited ballot drop-off boxes to one location per county, a county's election office. LaRose had been interpreting an Ohio law that states the only two ways to return an absentee ballot are to mail it, with the post office that's been dismantled by Louis DeJoy, or personally deliver it to the director, as meaning that if a voter chooses to use a drop-off box, it must be at the county board of elections office, because that is still considered to be delivering the ballot directly to the director. Now, Judge Dan Polster, like no pun intended, jumps in and he's like, no, I know what you're doing. And you're claiming that you need to do this to avoid voter fraud, but you have failed to provide any instances of voter fraud. Let me read you portions of his decision where he writes, while it may be said that the 7,903 registered voters in Noble County may find a single drop box location sufficient, the record demonstrates that the 858,041 registered voters in Cuyahoga County will likely not. The secretary is continuing to restrict boards from implementing off-site collection, and he appears to be doing so in an arbitrary manner. The court has given the secretary every opportunity to address the problem, and he has been unwilling or unable to do so. Finally, Polster's ruling makes him the latest judge to say that claims of election fraud are unsubstantiated. It is even easier to reject the secretary's second justification. No evidence was introduced at the hearing to support the conclusory reference to fraud in the secretary's brief. Boom.
Listen, I don't understand what's complicated about someone who cheats on his wife, hangs out with criminals, uses American money to fund their personal businesses, misappropriates immigration laws to benefit his own personal life with his wife, but then uses it to target marginalized people, lies, had an affair on his wife. I don't have to diss Stormy and berate her as a human being to point out that Donald Trump cheated on his wife. So I don't understand what is so complicated to understand that this person whose moral compass is all over the place is going to honor an election. So
exactly, he needs to cheat to win. More on this in the postgame, tyt.com/join to become a member. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.